Have you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in a relationship, unsure of what will trigger an explosive reaction? Or maybe you've found yourself questioning your own feelings and memories, wondering if you're the one who's truly at fault. In the world of narcissistic abuse, these feelings are all too common. As the abuser demands constant admiration and attention, the victim often feels neglected and undervalued. The emotional turmoil can leave you feeling lost, trapped in a cycle of confusion and self-doubt. What if the signs of this hidden abuse are more subtle than you think? 1. Lack of kindness and care. Relationships characterized by narcissistic abuse are often devoid of genuine kindness and care, leaving victims feeling trapped in a toxic environment. One of the most alarming aspects of such relationships is the lack of accountability from the narcissistic partner. They rarely acknowledge their hurtful behavior, which can lead to a cycle of confusion and emotional turmoil for the victim. Instead of offering a heartfelt apology or taking responsibility for their actions, narcissists often deflect blame onto their partners, making them feel as though they are the ones at fault. This manipulation creates an atmosphere where kindness is absent, and interactions become fraught with tension and misunderstanding. Victims of narcissistic abuse frequently report feeling as though their emotions and experiences are invalidated. The narcissist's inability to show empathy means that the victim's feelings are often dismissed or ridiculed. This lack of emotional support can lead to feelings of isolation, as the victim may feel they cannot express their true feelings without facing backlash or further manipulation. The relationship dynamic becomes one where the victim is constantly seeking approval and validation from someone who is incapable of providing it. Narcissistic individuals tend to exhibit immature behaviors that can escalate situations unnecessarily. They may react explosively to minor issues, demanding preferential treatment and punishing those around them when they don't receive it. This behavior forces victims to alter their own reactions and behaviors to avoid triggering the narcissist's wrath, leading them to compromise their values and boundaries. Over time, this can erode the victim's self-esteem and sense of self-worth, as they begin to feel that their needs are unimportant compared to the whims of the narcissist. In these relationships, confusion reigns supreme. Victims often find themselves trapped in a cycle of cognitive dissonance, where they struggle to reconcile their love for the narcissist with the pain they endure. The constant emotional upheaval can leave them questioning their reality, making it difficult to discern what is normal behavior in a healthy relationship. As a result, many victims may feel compelled to stay in these toxic dynamics, hoping for change or reconciliation that rarely comes. The absence of kindness and care in relationships marked by narcissistic abuse creates an environment where emotional manipulation thrives. Victims often find themselves in a perpetual state of anxiety and distress, feeling unheard and unimportant while navigating a landscape filled with emotional landmines. Recognizing these patterns is crucial for anyone who suspects they may be experiencing narcissistic abuse, as understanding the dynamics at play can be the first step toward reclaiming one's sense of self and well-being. 2. Immature behavior. Narcissistic individuals often display immature behavior, particularly in response to minor issues, which can create a challenging dynamic in relationships. This immaturity manifests itself through an expectation of preferential treatment, where the narcissist believes they should always come first, regardless of the circumstances. When their expectations are not met, they may react explosively, exhibiting behaviors that are disproportionate to the situation at hand. For instance, a simple disagreement can escalate into a heated argument, leaving their partner feeling bewildered and pressured to comply with the narcissist's demands to restore peace. This pattern can lead to a toxic environment where the victim feels they must tiptoe around the narcissist's sensitivities, often sacrificing their own needs and values in the process. The emotional reactivity displayed by narcissists is a hallmark of their immaturity. They often struggle to manage their emotions effectively and may lash out or shut down when faced with criticism or perceived slights. This impulsiveness can make it difficult for their partners to engage in open and honest communication. Instead of fostering a healthy dialogue, discussions can quickly devolve into blame games or tantrums, leaving the victim feeling unheard and invalidated. The inability of the narcissist to take responsibility for their actions further complicates matters. They may refuse to acknowledge their faults or project blame onto others, reinforcing their position of superiority. Victims may find themselves caught in a cycle where they feel compelled to accommodate the narcissist's demands to avoid conflict. This pressure can lead to feelings of loneliness and isolation as the victim's own needs become secondary. Over time, this dynamic can erode self-esteem and lead to a sense of helplessness. The relationship may feel like a constant balancing act, where one partner is always trying to appease the other while suppressing their own emotions and desires. This immature behavior can create an environment rife with confusion and cognitive dissonance. Victims might question their own perceptions and feelings due to the narcissist's manipulative tactics. They may find themselves doubting whether their reactions are justified or if they are overreacting. The inconsistency between what the narcissist says and does can leave victims feeling disoriented and unsure about the relationship's reality. Dealing with a partner who exhibits immature behavior rooted in narcissism can be exhausting and damaging. The constant need for validation from the narcissist often leads victims to compromise their own emotional health in favor of maintaining harmony in the relationship. Recognizing these patterns is crucial for anyone who suspects they are involved with a narcissistic individual, as understanding these dynamics is the first step toward reclaiming one's sense of self and well-being. 3. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a particularly insidious form of psychological manipulation that can profoundly affect victims by causing them to doubt their own experiences and feelings. This tactic involves the abuser systematically denying events or trivializing the victim's concerns, leading to a state of confusion and cognitive dissonance. The term gaslighting originates from the 1938 play Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her sanity by dimming the gas lights in their home and then denying that the lights are flickering when she points it out. This foundational example illustrates how gaslighting erodes a person's confidence in their own judgment and perception of reality. In practice, gaslighting can manifest in various ways. An abuser might outright deny that certain events occurred, insisting that the victim is misremembering or imagining things. For instance, if a victim recalls a hurtful comment made by the abuser may respond with, "That never happened, you're just being overly sensitive." Over time, these repeated denials can create a pervasive sense of doubt within the victim, leading them to question not only specific memories, but also their overall mental stability. This manipulation tactic can leave individuals feeling anxious and unsure of themselves, as they grapple with conflicting narratives about their reality. Gaslighting often involves shifting blame onto the victim for problems within the relationship. The abuser may claim that any issues are entirely due to the victim's actions or perceptions, further compounding feelings of guilt and inadequacy. For example, if a conflict arises, the narcissist might say something like, "If you weren't so insecure, we wouldn't have these problems," effectively placing responsibility on the victim while absolving themselves of any accountability. This dynamic fosters an environment where the victim feels trapped and powerless, as they struggle to navigate a relationship filled with mixed messages. The emotional toll of gaslighting can be severe. Victims may experience heightened anxiety and depression as they wrestle with self-doubt and confusion about their reality. The constant questioning of one's memory and feelings can lead to cognitive dissonance and internal conflict, where an individual's beliefs about themselves clash with their experiences in the relationship. This dissonance can make it increasingly difficult for victims to discern what is true, leading them to rationalize or excuse harmful behavior from their abuser. As victims become ensnared in this cycle of manipulation, they may find themselves increasingly isolated from friends and family who could provide support or validation. The abuser often works to undermine these external relationships, making it easier to maintain control over the victim. In this way, gaslighting not only distorts reality but also creates dependency on the abuser for emotional validation and support. Understanding gaslighting is crucial for recognizing its damaging effects on mental health and well-being. Being aware of this manipulation tactic is an essential step toward reclaiming one's sense of reality and self-worth in the face of such psychological abuse. 4. Trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is a complex emotional phenomenon that occurs when victims develop a strong attachment to their abuser, despite the ongoing harm they endure. This bond is often reinforced by cycles of abuse and reconciliation, creating a dynamic that can be difficult to escape. At the heart of trauma bonding is the interplay between intense emotional experiences and psychological manipulation. Victims frequently find themselves oscillating between periods of abuse and moments of affection or remorse from the abuser, which can create confusion about the nature of their relationship. During the honeymoon phase, the abuser may express deep love and regret, promising that the abuse will never happen again. This manipulation can lead victims to rationalize or justify the abusive behavior, believing that their partner truly cares for them. The emotional connection formed through trauma bonding can be so profound that it often resembles love, making it challenging for victims to recognize the toxicity of their situation. Many victims feel a sense of loyalty or responsibility toward their abuser, often believing that they can help change them or that they are somehow to blame for the abuse. This mindset is further complicated by feelings of guilt and shame, which are frequently instilled by the abuser as a means of maintaining control. The victim may feel pity for the abuser's struggles or past traumas, reinforcing their attachment and making it even harder to leave the relationship. Trauma bonding can be exacerbated by a victim's history of insecure attachment styles developed during childhood. If an individual grew up in an environment characterized by chaos or inconsistency, they may be more susceptible to forming trauma bonds in adulthood. This familiarity with dysfunction can lead them to misinterpret intense emotional experiences as passion or love, rather than recognizing them as signs of an unhealthy relationship. The cyclical nature of trauma bonding, where periods of violence are followed by reconciliation, creates a powerful reinforcement loop. Each cycle can deepen the bond between victim and abuser, making it increasingly difficult for the victim to break free. The emotional highs experienced during reconciliation can overshadow the lows of abuse, leading victims to cling to hope that things will improve permanently. This hope can be intoxicating and often leads to denial about the severity of the situation. 5. Ignoring boundaries. Ignoring personal boundaries is a hallmark behavior of narcissistic abusers, often leaving their victims feeling powerless and trapped in a cycle of emotional turmoil. Narcissists frequently disregard the limits that others set, whether those boundaries pertain to emotional, physical, or psychological aspects of the relationship. This violation can manifest in various ways, such as intruding on personal space, dismissing feelings, or undermining the victim's autonomy. The result is a toxic environment where the victim feels their needs and desires are irrelevant, leading to a profound sense of helplessness and confusion. Victims of narcissistic abuse may find themselves constantly adjusting their behavior to appease their abuser, often at the expense of their own well-being. The abuser may manipulate situations to make the victim feel guilty for asserting their boundaries, framing their needs as unreasonable or selfish. This emotional manipulation can create a dynamic where the victim feels obligated to comply with the narcissist's demands, further reinforcing the abuser's control over them. As a result, victims may experience heightened anxiety and low self-esteem, fearing repercussions if they dare to assert themselves. Setting clear boundaries is essential for protecting one's emotional health in such relationships. However, establishing these boundaries can be incredibly challenging when dealing with a narcissist. Effective boundary setting requires clarity about what behaviors are unacceptable and a commitment to enforcing consequences when those boundaries are crossed. Unfortunately, narcissists often respond to boundary setting with anger or contempt, viewing it as a personal affront rather than a necessary aspect of healthy interaction. This reaction can discourage victims from asserting themselves further, trapping them in a cycle of compliance and self-doubt. Narcissistic individuals tend to lack empathy and self-reflective capacity, making it difficult for them to understand how their actions impact others. They may believe that the rules do not apply to them, leading to impulsive boundary violations without regard for the emotional fallout on their partners. This arrogance can create an environment where victims feel as though their emotions are invalid and that they must constantly justify their feelings and needs. The emotional toll of living in such an environment can be devastating. Victims may experience feelings of isolation as narcissistic abusers often attempt to control social interactions and support systems. By undermining relationships with friends and family, narcissists further entrench their victims' in dependency on them for validation and emotional support. This isolation can exacerbate feelings of powerlessness and reinforce the belief that there is no escape from the abusive situation. Recognizing the importance of boundaries is crucial for anyone involved with a narcissistic individual. Boundaries serve not only as protection against manipulation, but also as a means of reclaiming one's sense of self-worth. Empowerment through boundary setting involves acknowledging that one deserves respect and kindness in relationships. It is essential for victims to understand that they have the right to establish limits that protect their emotional well-being, even if those boundaries are met with resistance or hostility from the narcissist. In navigating these complex dynamics, seeking support from therapists or support groups can be invaluable. These resources provide validation and guidance on how to effectively set and maintain boundaries while healing from the emotional scars left by narcissistic abuse. By recognizing the patterns of boundary violation and taking proactive steps toward establishing personal limits, victims can begin to regain control over their lives and work toward healthier relationships in the future. 6. Emotional symptoms. Victims of narcissistic abuse often experience a range of emotional symptoms that can significantly impact their mental health and overall well-being. Common responses include anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, all of which stem from the manipulative and controlling nature of the relationship. Anxiety is frequently heightened in these situations, as victims live in a constant state of fear regarding their abuser's reactions. They may find themselves hyper-vigilant, anticipating criticism or emotional outbursts, which can lead to chronic stress and an inability to relax. This perpetual state of alertness not only affects their mental health but can also manifest physically, contributing to fatigue and other stress-related symptoms. Depression is another prevalent emotional response among those subjected to narcissistic abuse. The relentless belittling and devaluation from the abuser can chip away at the victim's self-worth, leading them to internalize negative messages about themselves. Over time, this can result in feelings of hopelessness and despair, making it difficult for victims to see a way out of their situation. The isolation often imposed by narcissistic partners further exacerbates these feelings. Abusers frequently control their victims' social interactions, limiting contact with friends and family who might offer support or validation. This isolation creates a sense of loneliness that compounds the emotional distress, as victims may feel they have no one to turn to for help or understanding. Low self-esteem is a pervasive issue for victims of narcissistic abuse. Constant criticism and emotional manipulation lead individuals to doubt their abilities and worthiness. They may struggle with feelings of inadequacy and believe they are unlovable or undeserving of respect. This diminished self-image can hinder their ability to assert themselves in other areas of life, including work or personal relationships, perpetuating a cycle of dependence on the abuser for validation. The emotional turmoil experienced by victims can lead to difficulties in regulating emotions. Many find themselves swinging between extreme highs and lows, experiencing moments of intense love and connection, followed by periods of profound hurt and rejection. This emotional roller coaster can create confusion about what constitutes healthy affection versus manipulation, making it challenging for victims to trust their instincts. 7. Feeling unheard or unimportant. In a narcissistic relationship, one partner often feels unheard or undervalued, primarily because the narcissist craves constant admiration and attention. This insatiable need for validation from others can lead to a significant imbalance in the relationship, where the narcissist's desires take precedence over their partner's feelings and needs. As a result, the victim may experience a profound sense of neglect, feeling as though their emotions and opinions are consistently dismissed or minimized. This dynamic creates an environment where the victim feels invisible, leading to feelings of worthlessness and isolation. The emotional neglect experienced in these relationships can be particularly damaging. Narcissists often engage in behaviors that reinforce their partner's feelings of unimportance, such as interrupting them during conversations or failing to acknowledge their achievements. When a victim tries to express their thoughts or feelings, they may be met with indifference or outright hostility, further solidifying the belief that their voice does not matter. This lack of acknowledgement can lead to frustration and despair, as victims begin to internalize the message that they are not worthy of attention or care. The narcissist's obsession with themselves often results in a one-sided relationship where the victim feels compelled to cater to the abuser's needs. This can manifest in various ways, such as the victim sacrificing their own interests or desires to maintain harmony. The narcissist may demand constant attention and validation, leaving little room for their partner's emotional expression or personal growth. Consequently, victims may struggle with feelings of guilt when they attempt to assert their own needs, fearing that doing so will provoke anger or withdrawal from the narcissist. The emotional toll of feeling unheard or unimportant can lead to significant mental health challenges for victims. Many report experiencing anxiety and depression as they grapple with feelings of inadequacy and isolation. The constant need for approval from the narcissist can create a cycle of dependency, where victims feel they must earn love through compliance rather than being valued for who they are. This dynamic not only erodes self-esteem but also fosters a sense of hopelessness about the possibility of change within the relationship. 8. Confusion and cognitive dissonance. Victims of narcissistic abuse often find themselves grappling with significant confusion and cognitive dissonance, which can severely impact their mental health and overall well-being. Cognitive dissonance occurs when individuals hold conflicting beliefs or attitudes, leading to a state of psychological discomfort. In the context of a narcissistic relationship, this might manifest as a victim feeling torn between their love for their partner and the pain caused by the partner's abusive behavior. For instance, a victim may recognize that their partner exhibits harmful traits such as manipulation or emotional neglect, yet simultaneously cling to the belief that the partner truly loves them. This internal conflict creates a profound sense of unease, making it difficult for victims to trust their own perceptions and experiences. The presence of mixed messages is particularly common in narcissistic relationships. A partner may profess love and affection while simultaneously engaging in hurtful behaviors, such as belittling comments or emotional withdrawal. This inconsistency can leave victims questioning their reality, leading them to rationalize or excuse the abuser's actions. They may find themselves thinking, if they really love me, why would they treat me this way? This type of cognitive dissonance can trap victims in a cycle of confusion, where they feel compelled to justify their partner's harmful behavior in order to maintain their belief in the relationship's potential for love and happiness. Gaslighting is another factor that exacerbates cognitive dissonance in these relationships. When a narcissistic partner denies events or manipulates the truth, victims may begin to doubt their own memories and perceptions. This psychological manipulation creates a gap between what victims believe to be true and what they experience, further complicating their ability to navigate the relationship. Over time, this can lead to increased anxiety and stress as victims struggle to reconcile these conflicting realities. The emotional toll of cognitive dissonance can be severe. Victims often experience heightened levels of anxiety, depression, and self-doubt as they grapple with the internal conflict created by their relationship dynamics. The constant need to justify or rationalize the abuser's behavior can damage self-confidence and make it increasingly difficult for victims to assert their own needs or desires. As they become more entrenched in this cycle of confusion, leaving the relationship may seem daunting or even impossible. Cognitive dissonance can lead to feelings of isolation. Victims may feel unable to confide in friends or family about their experiences due to shame or fear of judgment. This isolation can further exacerbate feelings of confusion and helplessness, as victims lack external validation or support that could help them make sense of their situation. The absence of a supportive network can leave individuals feeling trapped within their own thoughts and emotions.